History is written by the victors. The Romans saying that she was a great seductress, she was this awful Eastern witch.
She doesn't deserve to be remembered that way.
For over 2,000 years, Cleopatra VII Philopator, the last queen of Egypt, has been framed as an Eastern femme, fatale, beautiful, dangerous, using her allure and cunning to seduce Julius Caesar and then Mark Antony, before taking her own life with a venomous snake. That image has seeped into Roman poetry, Shakespeare's plays, and Hollywood films, becoming a symbol of lust and betrayal. But what if that entire persona was nothing more than history's greatest deception amid the chaos of Rome's civil war? Octavian, who would later become Emperor Augustus, needed a common enemy to consolidate his power. He launched a ruthless smear campaign, transforming Cleopatra into a depraved Eastern sorceress threatening Roman morals, to justify invading Egypt and toppling Mark Antony. The campaign was so successful that it still shapes our perceptions today. If the image of Cleopatra we've long believed in is merely the product of a power-manipulating propaganda machine, just how deeply has the truth about this powerful queen been buried? Travel back more than 2 millennia to when Cleopatra VII Philopator was born in 69 BCE, the daughter of King Ptolemy III Auletes, the last pharaoh of Greek Macedonian descent, ruling Egypt after the era of Alexander the Great. From the very beginning, she grew up in a court rife with political intrigue, where the Ptolemaic dynasty frequently intermarried to preserve the throne and engaged in life-or-death power struggles. In 51 BCE, upon her father's death, the 18-year-old Cleopatra ascended to the throne as co-ruler with her brother Ptolemy III. But soon after, she was deposed and forced to flee Alexandria. It was during this period of exile that Cleopatra revealed her extraordinary diplomatic skills. She sought to restore her power by allying with Julius Caesar, one of the most powerful figures in the world at the time, contrary to Hollywood's portrayal of a seductress relying on beauty. Cleopatra was actually renowned for her intellect and erudition. Greek and Egyptian sources describe her as fluent in multiple languages from Greek, Egyptian, Hebrew, Latin, to several Eastern tongues, a rarity among the Macedonian ruling class, who often did not learn the native language. Cleopatra was not just a politician, but also someone who wielded religion as a tool of power. She proclaimed herself the living embodiment of the goddess Isis, the supreme mother goddess and protector of Egypt. Stone inscriptions at the Temple of Dendera depict Cleopatra and her son Caesarion in pharaonic attire. Referred to as the living goddess Isis, a powerful message to the people this was not merely a foreign queen, but a legitimate divine ruler of the land. The surviving artifacts paint a picture far removed from the exquisite beauty in films. Ptolemaic coins minted during Cleopatra's reign show a face with a hooked nose and pointed chin. Not conforming to Greek standards of beauty, it was a realistic portrait, reflecting a powerful female sovereign rather than a symbol of desire. An administrative papyrus from 33 BCE even preserves Cleopatra's handwritten signature with the Greek word ginestoi, let it be done proof that she directly governed the state, not as the seductive puppet Rome depicted. The alliance with Julius Caesar in 48 BCE was not simply romantic. Cleopatra needed him to solidify her throne and stabilize a country threatened by civil war and Roman interference. This partnership helped her reclaim the throne, establishing Caesarion, her son, with Caesar as the legitimate heir. Cleopatra restructured the government, stabilized finances, controlled the Nile-Mediterranean trade routes, and restored Egypt to its prosperous position. But it was this very independence and diplomatic ambition that made Cleopatra a threat in Roman eyes. After Caesar's assassination in 44 BCE, Cleopatra sought to protect Egypt by aligning with Mark Antony, the powerful general controlling the East. This was no simple romance, it was a political calculation to keep Egypt out of Octavian's grasp. From contemporary Egyptian and Greek sources, Cleopatra emerges as an intelligent strategist, a seasoned diplomat, and a profound religious political symbol. But as Rome prepared for the final battle, all of that was about to be erased by a weapon no less potent: propaganda. This is how it unfolded. In the late 1st century BCE, the Roman Republic was crumbling. After Julius Caesar's assassination in 44 BCE, power fell to the triumvirate: Octavian, Caesar's adopted son and legitimate heir, Mark Antony, the renowned general controlling the East, and Lepidus, a weaker figure. The alliance quickly dissolved, with Octavian and Antony becoming opposing poles in the struggle for supreme power. In the East, Antony found a strategic ally, Cleopatra. Not only was she a wealthy queen with Egypt's treasury, but she also controlled vital trade routes and a formidable fleet. Antony needed logistics and finances. Cleopatra needed a bulwark to protect Egypt's independence. It was a political deal more than romance, but in Rome. Octavian saw an opportunity. Octavian understood to win. He had to conquer the battlefield of public opinion. A civil war between two Roman generals would divide the people, but framing it as Rome versus a foreign threat would unite them. Cleopatra, the alien Eastern queen. Wealthy and corrupting a Roman general was the perfect target. The campaign began with speeches and symbols. Before the Senate, Octavian described Antony as bewitched by Cleopatra, betraying Rome and gifting lands to a foreign queen. He exploited moral outrage over Antony, abandoning his legitimate wife, Octavia, Octavian's sister, to live luxuriously in Alexandria. Coins became propaganda weapons. Octavian minted denarii and auri, featuring himself with slogans praising victory, while condemning Antony and Cleopatra's tetradrachms, bearing both their images. These coins spread across the Mediterranean, planting in people's minds the story of Antony enchanted. Rome threatened. Religion and traditional morals were exploited to the fullest. Octavian painted Cleopatra as the embodiment of Eastern luxury, magic, and depravity opposed to Roman restraint. In a society that valued family, the image of Antony abandoning his wife and children for a foreign queen became a powerful psychological blow. Even political texts reinforced the narrative. In the Res Gestae Divi Augusti, his manifesto after ascending the throne, Octavian avoided naming Cleopatra directly, but cleverly described himself as the liberator of the state from an Eastern threat and victor at Actium 31 BCE. This naval battle, the defeat of Antony and Cleopatra, was promoted as a righteous war defending Rome, though it was truly just civil strife. Thanks to this campaign, by 32 BCE, Octavian controlled public opinion. He declared war not on Antony, a Roman citizen, but on Cleopatra, the Egyptian sorceress queen. Thus, the civil war became a justified defensive conflict when Antony and Cleopatra's fleet lost at Actium. Octavian returned to Rome with a ready-made story he had saved the Republic from Eastern invasion. Afterward, Octavian annexed Egypt and staged the victory. He paraded Cleopatra's children as spoils of war, reinforcing the image of a subdued enemy. Later, Roman historians from Plutarch to Cassius Dio wrote under the shadow of that triumph, repeating the portrayal of Cleopatra as a seductive and depraved threat. In his Life of Antony, Plutarch acknowledged Cleopatra's intellectual charm, but still emphasized her as the Eastern woman who enchanted and destroyed Antony. Cassius Dio went further, describing her as using sorcery and lust to ruin the Roman general. In contrast, contemporary evidence from Egypt and Greece tells a different story. Stone inscriptions at Dendera depict Cleopatra as Isis, mother goddess and protector of Egypt. Administrative papyri bearing her signature show a queen directly governing the state, signing decisions herself. Ptolemaic coins portray her as a powerful leader, not a sexual symbol. But this material was overshadowed by the Roman historical tide and gradually faded after Egypt's annexation. As the Roman Empire expanded, the story Octavian built became official history. Later generations believed Cleopatra was a dangerous beauty using cunning and allure to seduce Caesar and Antony. Her role as a multilingual politician, economic reformer, or religious icon nearly vanished. In medieval Europe, memories of Cleopatra were recycled through a Christian moral lens, the archetype of a lustful woman punished, by the Renaissance, especially in Shakespeare. The image was romanticized into the queen of infinite variety, beautiful, seductive, but ultimately the destroyer of a Roman general. The play Antony and Cleopatra 1606, though poetic, relied almost entirely on the Roman historical tradition when Hollywood emerged. The story was amplified further. The 1963 film Cleopatra, starring Elizabeth Taylor, reaffirmed her as a symbol of glamorous beauty, romance, and tragedy, though epic. The film largely ignored the political diplomatic depths, reinforcing the stereotype that Cleopatra triumphed through beauty rather than intellect. The result is that over 2 millennia, the true image has been buried under layers of propaganda, moralization, and romanticization. The general public knows only a frivolous Cleopatra, while archaeological data and contemporary texts reveal a complex, intelligent, and pragmatic leader. This also exposes the power of history written by the victors. When an empire controls media from coins and monuments to books, it can shape collective memory for thousands of years. In Cleopatra's case, Octavian not only defeated a political enemy, he transformed her into the symbol he wanted Romans to remember, a depraved Eastern threat that needed elimination. The consequences endure to this day. The public still absorbs the story through popular books, films, and mass culture. Centuries later, even as modern archaeology and research begin to reveal a different truth, the femme fatale image clings tightly to the imagination. This offers a chilling lesson when information is manipulated by power. Truth can be distorted and persist as myth for millennia. For centuries, Cleopatra's image has been shrouded by the story written by Rome. But archaeology and modern science are peeling away those layers of propaganda, restoring a queen far removed from the Eastern sorceress. One of the most prominent efforts comes from Kathleen Martinez. Since 2005, she has excavated at Taposiris Magna, a temple complex west of Alexandria, believed to possibly house the resting place of Cleopatra and Mark Antony. Martinez's team has uncovered coins engraved with Cleopatra's portrait, marble busts, Isis amulets, and a system of tunnels hundreds of meters long confirmed by ground-penetrating radar, though the tomb hasn't been found yet. These discoveries show Cleopatra was worshipped as Isis and remained a center of rituals even after Egypt fell to Rome. At the same time, urban archaeology and 3D scanning technology are reconstructing ancient Alexandria. Underwater surveys have revealed remnants of the Caesareum, a temple Cleopatra built to honor Julius Caesar and affirm Ptolemaic power. Digital 3D maps show a massive commercial military infrastructure, proving Cleopatra was an economic power builder, not just a luxurious queen. Genetic science is also dismantling stereotypes. In 2017, Verena Schoenemann's team published in Nature Communications an analysis of DNA from Ptolemaic mummies at Abu Sir el-Malek. Though no direct sample from Cleopatra exists, the data indicates the Ptolemaic royals had Greek Levant origins, but were not entirely isolated from natives. This undermines Roman rhetoric that Cleopatra was an alien stranger to Egypt. Modern historians are rereading Roman sources with a critical eye. Stacy Schiff, in Cleopatra: A Life 2010, analyzes how Plutarch and Cassius Dio depicted Cleopatra under Augustus's influence. Barry Strauss, The War That Made the Roman Empire. 2022 points out how Octavian deliberately framed the conflict as Rome versus the East. Joyce Tildesley emphasizes Cleopatra as a master politician and diplomat, not someone relying solely on beauty. Even seemingly minor artifacts become powerful evidence. The 33 BCE administrative papyrus with the handwritten genestoi shows Cleopatra directly managing the court. Antony-Cleopatra tetradrachms affirm a political-military alliance. Dendera stone inscriptions record her Isis titles, showing she used religion to bolster legitimacy. All contradict the frivolous and man-dependent image Octavian created. Thanks to these findings, Cleopatra's image is gradually shifting a pragmatic leader who used religion and diplomacy to maintain Egypt's independence against Rome's overwhelming pressure. However, the 2,000-year propaganda legacy remained strong. Films, literature, and popular culture continue to cling to the femme fatale over the politician. But each new excavation, DNA study, and digitized map of Alexandria is slowly detoxifying history, allowing us to see the real woman behind the myth. More importantly, this process shows that science and archaeology can challenge the authority of official history. They not only redefine Cleopatra, but also pave the way to reevaluate many other figures distorted by politics and propaganda. More than 2,000 years after Cleopatra's death, the image Octavian constructed still dominates humanity's imagination, from Roman poetry and Shakespeare's plays to Hollywood blockbusters. The Egyptian queen is continually recreated as a femme fatale, beautiful, seductive, and the doom of powerful men. In the Middle Ages and Renaissance, memories of Cleopatra were turned into moral lessons. Christian theologians depicted her as the classic example of lust and punishment. By Shakespeare's time, she was romanticized, but still framed as the Eastern lover who ruined Antony. The play Antony and Cleopatra 1606 elevated her to an enchanting symbol, but overlooked nearly all her political intellect and diplomatic strength. In the 20th century, Hollywood further entrenched this template. The 1963 film Cleopatra with Elizabeth Taylor became a cultural icon, glamorous, sensual, tragic. But despite its grandeur, the film still drew from the story Octavian created over 2,000 years ago, a queen who triumphed through beauty rather than strategy. The consequences extend beyond how we view Cleopatra. They influence how society perceives powerful women. When one of antiquity's most intelligent female leaders is reduced to a sex symbol, it reinforces the stereotype that female power exists only through appearance or seduction. Many researchers point out that this is a classic example of how political propaganda and patriarchy shape history, obscuring women's true roles in power and diplomacy. Alongside the past, the lessons from Cleopatra remain strikingly relevant today. Octavian used media and symbols to turn a rival into a moral threat, and other worthy of destruction, more than 2,000 years later. We still see similar smear campaigns targeting female leaders from Western politics to Asia, with patterns little changed, emphasizing personal life, appearance, seductiveness over competence and strategy. This reminds us that the saying history is written by the victors is no mere slogan. It's a warning about the power of information and imagery in defining truth. If Cleopatra could be turned into an Eastern sorceress for 2 millennia, how many other figures are being distorted to serve political power? Modern archaeological discoveries, DNA research, and critical historical analysis not only restore truth to one queen, they also send a message. Historical truth always needs re-examination through the lenses of science, skepticism, and fairness. Unmasking ancient propaganda helps us stay vigilant against the obvious stories being told today in both politics and global media. Cleopatra was not the scheming woman who lived solely on her beauty. As popular history still claims, she was a multilingual politician, a strategist who leveraged religion and diplomacy to keep Egypt independent in an era when the Roman Empire's expansion was unstoppable. But all of that was obscured by a clever propaganda campaign, orchestrated by Octavian to transform a civil war into a righteous crusade and legitimize his absolute power. 2,000 years later, that propaganda layer still holds astonishing power. It appears in textbooks, Shakespeare's plays, Hollywood films, and even in how we think about powerful women. Only when modern archaeology, DNA science, and critical historians begin to shine a light does the truth slowly emerge. Cleopatra's story, therefore, is not just about the past. It is a warning history is not always objective truth, but often a product of power and media. When the tools of storytelling are in the hands of the victors, truth can be bent and persist as myth for thousands of years. If Cleopatra, one of the world's most famous queens, could be distorted like this, how many other stories are we believing without verification? And do we have the courage to look back at the past with skeptical eyes to uncover the hidden truth?